your brushing routine in the morning, and these are critically important. And I think when we start our morning routine, we wake up in the morning, what is the first thing that we do when we get out of bed? We're going to talk about first light and why getting morning sunlight is the most powerful thing that you can do for your health and how it can reset your circadian biology. But before we even get outside into the light, we should be going in straight out of bed, splashing a little water on our face, and starting our oral care routine. And this is where I think people go wrong. First of all, we put toothpaste on a toothbrush. We don't intentionally think about what kind of toothpaste we're using. We get in there and we think it's a contest to try to scrub the enamel off of our teeth. I'll give you 3 tips about how you can start your brushing routine in the morning. And these are critically important. And if any of you are familiar with dental hygiene, or you're dental hygienist, or you're actually practicing dentist, you know this to be true. First of all of us should be using a toothbrush that's soft. Medium and hard toothbrushes will actually damage and erode the enamel in your tooth, and they're very difficult on our gums. Receding gums are the primary reason why our oral cavity gets infected by things like cavitations, and our microbiome in our oral cavity, a lot of it is contained in the sockets in our gum layer. So the first thing you can do, if you're not already doing it, is tomorrow replace your toothbrush with a soft toothbrush. These are couple of bucks, and it's a game changer in how we're brushing our teeth. The second thing that we can do is we can switch from a fluoride-based toothpaste, which is usually also full of artificial sweeteners, to a toothpaste that is the toothpaste that switches fluoride for something called hydroxyapatite. I want you to look for that on the label of your toothpaste. If you actually spin around a tube of toothpaste, you'll actually see on the back of it, there's a mandatory FDA warning that says, if you swallow this toothpaste, contact poison control immediately. And why do they tell you to contact poison control if you actually swallow toothpaste? They say if there's more than used for brushing is swallowed, contact poison control. And why is that? Because fluoride is a neurotoxin. Fluoride is actually something called fluorosilicic acid. It is the byproduct of industrial fertilizer production. We produce about 230 million metric tons of fertilizer in this country every year for farming and agriculture. And when we produce that fertilizer, there is a toxic compound called fluorosilicic acid that is in that fertilizer that we have to take out because it will burn the root of the plant. We take that fluorosilicic acid and we dump it into our municipal water supply as fluoride. If you go to the National Toxicology Program or you go to the National Institute of Health, you can actually go right there. You can put in the word fluoride and you will see that it is categorized as a neurotoxin. Now, fluoride is also supposed to remineralize your enamel. In other words, we get tiny little pits in our enamel, and inside of these pits, microbiomes embed themselves into those pits, and they begin to erode the enamel and get into the dentin of the tooth. But fluoride only has a marginal impact on this. If you go to your dentist and you get fluoride treatments once a year, that's fine, but brushing your teeth every day with fluoride toothpaste is the first little small shift that we're going to do when we talk about caring for our oral cavity. Second thing that I want to do is I want to talk about the science behind the oral cavity even before we get to light. Can we actually switch up here? Can I actually do something on the board before we get here? I want to walk you through why the next 3 things that I'm going to talk about are so important. This will only add maybe 2 minutes to your oral routine in the morning. So you've woken up, you splashed water on your face, you brush your teeth with a soft toothbrush with hydroxyapatite, not with fluoride. And now I want to transfer over to this screen, and I want to talk a little bit about why the next part of our morning routine is so important. Can these guys see this? I'm going to blow this up. I want to actually show you a map of the meridians inside of your mouth and show you that our teeth, each one of our teeth can be mapped to different organ systems in the body. Look how many times the colon is mapped to different organ systems in the body. What's really interesting about atherosclerosis and arterial sclerosis, not only plaquing and scarring of the arteries, narrowing of the arteries, but also hardening of the arteries. What's really interesting is now a lot of research is mapping this back to the oral cavity. And why would we map calcium deposits in the arterial wall back to our oral cavity? Well, because there's only 2 ways that calcium can form into a bone-like structure in our bodies. Remember, our bones are not calcium. Calcium combines with something called phosphorus it forms a compound called hydroxyapatite, and our bones are hydroxyapatite. In fact, contrary to popular belief, you actually can't make bones with just calcium. Putting people on additional calcium supplements has proved to be futile. I mean, nursing homes all over the world are full of elderly men and elderly women that have been on calcium supplements for 15 or 20 years that are plagued with osteopenia or osteoporosis. But the point that I want to raise is the fact that when there are two types of cellular structures in the body that can actually create bone. One is an osteoclast, which builds bones, and that's inside of your bone. The second one is a bacteria from your mouth. This bacteria in your mouth that can actually create enamels and bones is the exact same bacteria that is found in the arterial wall when we calcify our arteries. So these pathways map directly from our oral cavity directly into our cardiovascular system. So caring for the oral cavity is extraordinarily important. When we look at different teeth and we think, wow, could our teeth actually be affecting our eyesight? Could it be affecting our respiratory rate? Could it be affecting the way that contents move through our colon? The answer is yes. If you know my story, I actually cracked my, I think it was my 13th meridian molar in the back of my mouth. And I called my biologic dentist friend. And he said, hey, send me a picture of it. So I sent him a picture. And when he saw the picture, he sent me this chart. And he said, Gary, do you ever get left anterior shoulder pain? And I go, that's strange. I actually do. He said, do you ever get left lower lobe pain in your lung? Which was really astounding to me because when I was doing HIIT's cardio, I would actually get a catch in my lung, which I attributed to just exercise-induced, a little exercise-induced catch in my lung. And then the third question he asked me absolutely blew my mind. And if you haven't seen my podcast with Dr. Jagar Gandhi, please go watch it because it will absolutely blow your mind how impactful the oral cavity is to the rest of our biome. The third thing he said to me was, does your left toe ever go numb? And that really freaked me out because I hadn't told anyone, not even my wife, that once in a while my left toe would go numb and I would just kind of tap it on the floor. He goes, yeah, that's your tooth meridian. It's mapped to a cavitation, an infection from a root canal that you have below that tooth. I go, how do you know I had a root canal? He said, just by the symptoms that you're telling me. So I actually went and had that tooth removed. I had the root canal cleaned out. He embedded red light therapy. He actually ran ozone gas into my jaw. He packed it full of my own platelets called platelet-rich fibrin. And then he replaced that tooth. And 48 hours after that procedure, all of those symptoms went away. So it's extraordinarily important that we care for our oral cavity. And I'm going to talk about what I think is the best way to care for our oral cavity. This is a cutaway view of the nervous system that innervates your teeth and how it originates and corresponds with the brain. Look at the number of pathways between the oral cavity and your eyes, your nose, your olfactory bulbs in your brain, and direct pathways into your brain. You know, we're starting to believe now that the genesis of a lot of early onset cognitive decline are these neuroinflammatory conditions in the body. When microbes migrate from the mouth into these areas in these neuronal pathways, they can go directly into the brain. So caring for our oral cavity is absolutely important. We're not specifically covering biological dentistry on this, but if you actually have mercury fillings in your mouth right now, I would really suggest contacting a biologic dentist and getting those replaced with amalgamate or with porcelain. If you have had a root canal, there is a 100% chance that you have an infection in your jaw. 100% chance. It's called a cavitation. Dentists are the only area of medical practice in the world that believes that you can leave dead tissue in the body. No other area of medicine believes that you can leave dead tissue in the body and ignore it. If your appendicitis dies, you need to take the appendix out. If any of your organ systems or tissue becomes necrotic, meaning it's dead, you have to take that out of the body. But we believe that we can kill the roots and the blood supply to a tooth, and we can just leave that alone in the body. The reason why it's painless is because you don't have a nerve there anymore, and the blood supply actually retreats, and it becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. So one of the greatest tips that I could give you guys, if you have root canals, please go see a biologic dentist and get those replaced. if you want to see something gross, I'm actually waiting on a tooth on this side. Can they see this if I actually show them? No. Okay, so I won't show you. I won't open my mouth and show you, but I actually have a cap here and I'm actually waiting to have the tooth put on it. I'm a deep believer in this. But this gives you a little bit of insight into how our oral cavity innervates the rest of our body.